Hi, this is Paula J, delivering the Cybersecurity Talk, and this is a part of a content series that we deliver within the CQURE Academy, and this is a series of interviews with the most prominent and experienced people in the infrastructure and IT security world. And well, if you want to know more about Hyper-V and Azure, this is definitely a place to be for you right now. And today I am with Aidan Finn. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Brilliant, thank you.
Fantastic. So, well, Aidan speaks on different kinds of events like Microsoft Ignite and TechEds and all the other conferences. So I'm pretty sure that if you are within the subject, you've seen him. But a couple of words regarding the introduction. So, well, I know that you are in business since 1996, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of change over the time. Started work on Unix and VAX VMS and stuff like that, and accidentally fell into the Windows world and then into the virtualization and cloud world.
That's good. So basically you've seen a lot of different types of changes and transformations of the customer
things have changed a lot, as you see in the security business.
Yeah, cool. So Aidan is a specialist on Hyper-V and infrastructure solutions, and in Hyper-V particularly, that's what we're going to be talking about. And is there something that you want to add? You do a blog, right?
Yeah, I've been blogging on aidanfinn.com since 2006.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's great.
The blog has changed over the years. Started off on spaces.live.com or whatever it was called.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, way back when.
Yeah.
And then moved on to WordPress, and then I moved it on to my own site.
Oh, that's good.
And I write for Petri.com about Microsoft Cloud and virtualization stuff as well.
Petri, it's a great forum.
Yeah, Petri is a fantastic site. A lot of support from them as well. That's a growing and changing site too. And I tweet as @Joe_Elway, where you can find me sometimes tweeting about IT as well.
Perfect. Okay, so I've got a couple of disturbing questions for you today.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the first question is something that is bothering everybody about Hyper-V security. Moving straight to the point, can Hyper-V be hacked?
Oh wow, what a great question. Can any software be hacked? And I guess if it's more than hello world, it probably can be hacked.
Yeah.
You know, software is huge and complex, and there's always things.
Yeah.
What I will say about Hyper-V is it's incredibly secure. Because it's a relatively new hypervisor, Microsoft designed it with security in mind. So each of the pieces have been specifically placed in kernel mode or within user mode in the management OS, or the host OS if you want to call it that, which is sitting directly on the hypervisor. So there's a myth that Hyper-V sits on top of the host. That's not true.
Okay.
When you look at the architecture, it's quite clear. And the components are specifically placed. So for example, drivers, yes, they sit in kernel mode. But things that the virtual machines are communicating with are running in user mode, like the virtual switch or the integration services are all sitting there safely in user mode. And then the components don't actually necessarily have a whole lot of trust in each other. And they specifically have this trustlet model where they trust certain amounts of communication, but not that much. And that's very clear to see when you see an error in Hyper-V. Because the error, when you look at it, doesn't tell you a whole lot of information. And when you expand it, you can see all the various different pieces of information from the different layers of the management OS. So there is complete isolation there. It's enforced using data execution prevention from the processor. We've got memory marking to say this is owned by a virtual machine, this is owned by the host, and these two things can't be read by each other. So it's a secure hypervisor. Have there been vulnerabilities? Yeah, they've been found. Every software has vulnerabilities, and Microsoft are quick to patch them. They've hardened the hypervisor a lot in 2016. So they went deep back into the hypervisor and said, okay, we want to build something that people can use as a platform for cloud computing. So they hardened the architecture again, and they started building out other pieces to sit on top of the platform. So we got things like shielded virtual machines.
Yeah, that's a pretty good feature.
Yeah, it's a great feature. The ability to have a virtual TPM chip within the virtual machines.
Oh, actually, if someone asks me like, what is the hottest thing that happened in 2016, I would say it's a VTPM.
Really?
Yeah, seriously. It's something that, at least from a security perspective, in my opinion, changes landscape drastically.
Yeah, it brings control back to the tenant.
Yeah.
Where they can say, you know what, I don't trust, you know, the sysadmin. You know, I don't trust the storage admin. And it's an old question that I've seen in IT going back years and years, where HR have, you know, a database of all the salaries and they don't trust IT. because they're afraid we're going to peek in and see what the boss is making and demand a pay rise.
That is one of the scenarios, yeah.
And now HR can run that application in a VM, have that box checked, so they have to get the virtual TPM, and then they control the recovery key.
Yeah.
It's outside of the control of IT.
It's a very, very nice architecture. Do you think, by the way, that virtualization-based security, referring to what you said, will this change in the future the security landscape?
Yeah, I think that's already started to happen. So, if you look at the specific implementation of VPS within Windows Server and Windows 10 Enterprise, so if you get Windows 10 Enterprise E3, whether it's True Software Assurance or CSP subscription or whatever, you now have this ability to turn on the hypervisor itself, not just Hyper-V with all the management for use for virtual machines. And you get the ability to isolate the LSAS process.
Which is a fantastic option, right?
Yeah, like I've seen your presentations where you start harvesting hashes and stuff like that. Where you can say, okay, we're going to put this away.
No longer possible.
Yeah, you're just coming up with a blank result.
Yeah.
And your legacy applications can still have that interface to this little LSAS that's left behind that has no secrets.
Yeah, I can tell you that from my perspective, it's hard to say that I'm not happy about it. But
it's killed your demos.
Yeah, well,
by bypass the hash.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to figure out something else. But like from that perspective, which is quite juicy, also at work. Yes, because when I do the pen test, I can do the pass the hash pretty much on every kind of customer side. Then when the customers will start implementing what you were talking about, so credential guard and so on, then this is no longer possible. So that's quite nice.
And it's all hardware enforced.
Yeah.
It's Hyper-V marking the memory to say this is owned by that specific little VM that you don't have to manage. It's running a microkernel. It's got Hyper-V code integrity checking. It's got kernel code integrity checking. It's got that little isolated LSAS. And the whole thing is very cleverly built. It's there in Windows Server. It's there in Windows 10 Enterprise. So if you're looking for something to secure your environment, like you'll be more familiar with the statistics than I am. They're saying that once an attacker is on your network, it takes them 2 days to become a domain admin.
Or even faster.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, actually, 2 days is more like if you're gonna, bake yourself cookies in the company's kitchen, and
you've got a lot of customers to work on at the same time.
Yeah. And you're gonna sleep well and so on, and you're gonna spend this 15 minutes to get access to the infrastructure. That's basically.
And with this feature now, that's a couple of clicks away and some group policy away, you're able to stop that.
Yeah, exactly. Like stop.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things Microsoft might have protected Sony when they got hacked.
Well.
So maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think those attackers were pretty determined and motivated. But if you can stop that basic attack where someone's able to harvest the hash details and find, okay, a domain admin has signed into this PC at some point, and here's some details that are interesting. You're able to protect the environment. I think that's cool, and we're seeing this technology now being extended in future Windows 10 updates, where Edge, for example, has got to be isolated in one of these VSMs.
One of the coolest moves, I would say.
Yeah. And if Microsoft can come up with a way to put or encapsulate all software in these types of virtual machines, because they are virtual machines
like
in the
little
end.
ones,
then we suddenly have a security model to protect everything.
Absolutely.
Everything's sandboxed.
And everything's sandboxed. Yeah, that's a very cool thing. I always compare the browser like a little mouse amongst like the big crowd of lions.
Yeah.
Because you write a browser, which is absolutely a challenging task, and then you put it in the internet, and then you have the whole world against you.
Yeah.
Building all the different crazy websites that are out there, that when you enter, you are actually processing the code in order to display it for the user. So the browser, it's a very advanced piece of code. And obviously that's why we've got this news like Firefox, Internet Explorer, whatever, it's there, they have vulnerabilities. But finally, when you're going to isolate it, is everything just going to stay in one place?
It protects you against those 0 days, which we know are no longer so rare.
I love that.
I love that idea that we can isolate this thing, and if it blows up, you don't care.
Yeah,
it doesn't infect the system.
That's definitely the point. But of course, there are some requirements to implement it, right?
Yeah. So you need fairly modern hardware. This is the thing. So it's hardware in the last couple of years, realistically, and enterprise hardware. It's not the cheap business PC. You need Intel VTX, for example. You need a machine with data execution prevention. You need second level address translation, or SLAT.
Yes.
Now that, to be honest, that's been around PCs for 5-6 years, so that's not a problem.
No.
But realistically, you need good machines.
Secure boot.
Secure boot, so you need UEFI.
Yeah.
So you got to start getting used to UEFI in your OS deployment.
But that's going to come anywhere.
Yeah,
right?
and new machines are coming configured like that. So if you're getting, Surface, for example, or you're getting anything kind of like that from your HPs or your Dells, your Lenovos, you're getting machines that are, ready for this technology. And realistically, if you've bought the machines in the last couple of years, they probably have, if they're business class machines, they probably have the components to make this possible.
Yeah, and then you can freely use Credential Guard and all the other solutions that are within the virtualization to
the
cybersecurity.
ATP and all the cool things that are either here or coming with Windows 10 Enterprise.
Yeah, that's a cool set of features.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, and don't forget they're in Windows Server 2016 too.
Yes, absolutely. But here comes one thing, because you are also engaged in different types of private clouds. So building private cloud and all the situations related with that. Question is, when you got a private cloud, it's quite a popular service recently. So you not necessarily put machines in Azure, but then you just put in company XYZ. So can we really trust those environments? And if the answer is no, because you put your machines over there, it's kind of, let's say, cheaper, or it's within the same country maybe, so some companies have these requirements. What kind of tips could you give to administrators when they put their virtual machines in the cloud that is a private cloud that maybe not necessarily can be fully trusted?
Well, I guess the trust thing comes down to do you trust the company? If you don't trust the company, you don't do business with them.
That's a very simple approach.
So that's a simple approach.
Thank you.
So that's all that sorted. Moving on. So that's your first, it's a basic thing. Do you trust the company? Do they have the various certifications? Are they making the efforts? When you knock on the door without making an appointment, are the security staff there? The simple things, because I can tell you haven't worked in the hosting business, that's not always true. Yeah, sometimes security staff are hired for the meetings.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, that's an interesting one. Been there, done that. And then the real threat is probably the staff. And realistically, it's probably the lesser paid staff when you think about it.
Could be.
Yeah, or the disgruntled staff.
Yeah.
So what is that company doing to protect you against their staff? And that's the real thing you've got to start looking into.
So you may want to have a look at the paycheck of the
well,
guys.
It's not necessarily that you want to start looking at their HR system like we were talking about earlier. It's that you want to look at what systems they've got in place. Are security monitoring the environment? Are cameras all over the place? Are people in a position where they can pull disks? Do they have auditing systems? Is anyone looking at those auditing systems?
Can someone make memory dumps? Yeah.
Yeah, and then you want to say, okay, I'm putting stuff into an environment that I don't trust necessarily 100% the physical security. Maybe I want things like shielded virtual machines and virtual TPM and key storage drive and all these are the things that are available that I can take advantage of.
That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, so drive that hosting service provider or that cloud provider to use the technologies that are now available to us. Don't settle for technology that's 4 or 5 years old. Too many of us do that in the IT business.
Yeah.
If you want security, you need up-to-date systems. And there's nothing more up-to-date than Windows Server 2016.
Yeah.
And it is the most secure hypervisor there is out there, especially if you're talking about public or private cloud.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear.
The tenant can protect themselves and isolate themselves from that environment. And it's hardware backed by HSM.
Oh, which is absolutely
the case, the host guardian service, if production and deployment, it is protected by a HSM. The hosts are not trusted.
No.
They have to get the keys to start the virtual machines in the first place. So if the virtual machine moves to another environment, it can't get the keys, it won't start.
Yeah, so just to summarize, because it's a very interesting idea in a server environment, is that the host cannot be trusted over here. And the same is like when we have a look at the Credential Guard, the Windows, it's something that we cannot be trusted. That's why we are isolating things to protect really applications and eventually ELSAs and so on from Windows kernel itself. Yeah, because if someone runs an application that affects Windows kernel security, we're still okay. And that's the whole point. So we can assure our kind of personal interest by creating either our own applications that we're going to isolate. And the same story is with the shielded VMs that are available in Windows Server 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we isolate them. They behave kind of like at least I see it this way, as a process that you isolate. So whether it's a virtual machine or process or the opposite, we call them virtual machines. Yes, it's isolation that prevents us different types of exploitation techniques.
And for the IT pros and the customer side, this is great because, it's not outsourcing anymore. Because the infrastructure might be outsourced, but you're still responsible for what runs inside the virtual machine, which is where the value is, which is where your value is as an employee, as a member of IT to the enterprise.
And you can sleep well because you will not be affected from host computer.
Yeah, and there's other protections in there as well. So Hyper-V has the ability to detect rogue virtual machines, for example.
That's great.
So someone another tenant gets compromised because they wrote bad code for their website or something, or for their databases, and they start trying to do a DDoS attack or a DOS attack on the host. Well, Hyper-V can detect that and start starving that virtual machine of resources, so the DOS attack becomes pointless.
Things change in the virtualization.
For
the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's great. It's all driven by Azure as well, which is kind of
Yes.
cool. It's stuff that Microsoft either are doing in Azure or want to do in Azure because they use Hyper-V. And they use the same hypervisor that we do, in fact. They're using 2012 and 2012 R2 Hyper-V.
Yeah.
So they're actually a little bit behind where we can be.
Yeah, but it's still on the safe side, right?
Yeah, it's driving the security, it's driving the supportability, it's driving the performance, and what we can do in cloud, public and private.
Okay, cool. So this is a set of information for you guys. Now, very important questions that I believe that young people starting their career would like to know about. What would be the set of skills that is necessary for the young person? So this young person looks at you and says like, oh, I want to do the same stuff as this guy does. Yeah. So what kind of skills this person should have at the very beginning? So starting from the basics.
Yeah. First thing I would tell anyone getting into IT is don't be me, be a programmer. But I actually started off as a programmer.
Yeah,
really? So I was a C and C++ programmer. That's how I started off.
C++. I've been once on a C++ party. Nobody was talking to anyone,
No messages.
They were like all the time doing the program. Like, what am I doing over here? That was the best party ever.
Oh, wow. But I think it's a great foundation. Yes. So even if you don't decide, this is my career path, I think it's a good career path going forward. As a programmer in the cloud, data analytics, data science, and all that stuff. I think it's a great path to go down. I think it's longevity there, not necessarily on the IT pro side. But I think there's always going to be stuff running on premises. I think I agree with Microsoft on that. And there's still always going to be skills required, just as there are today for mainframe administrators, for example.
Yeah.
What I would say is it's a great foundation, and that sets you up for the first thing I think you need, which is the ability to script.
Oh, that's great.
You need to know PowerShell, and
lovely.
too few of us know PowerShell. I find it's a thing that saves me so much time, and it allows me to deploy things fast.
I use PowerShell as a hacking tool.
Jeffrey Snover would be delighted to hear that. Second thing, networking. You need to know your basic networking.
That's good.
You'd be amazed how many people I train who do not know how to do subnetting.
Oh, no.
And I mean basic subnetting, Class B, Class C. So to understand the basics, because when you understand that stuff, you're able to build the most important, one of the two most important things in virtualization, which is networking, and the second thing you want to learn, or third thing you want to learn, storage.
Oh, okay.
Software-defined storage. Not the classic SAN thing, because that's going to dwindle.
Okay.
Software-defined storage is the way to go. It's cloud-inspired, it's cost-effective, the performance is just crazy. I saw today here at this event a NVMe disk running at, a single disk running at 1.1 million IOPS.
No kidding.
That used to be a rack and a half of spinning disks.
I have to do that. It's it's crazy.
Imagine putting that thing into your laptop.
I want that, of course. I already imagined when you said that.
Yeah, so those would be big things. And then I would say you want to learn how to deploy, design, secure, and fast virtual machines. And that all comes down to understanding your workload, understanding security threats. Yeah, there's so many things, but when you start with the fundamentals, I think everything else kind of attaches to itself. And the last skill I would recommend is learn how to learn.
Oh, that's a fantastic skill.
Yeah.
It's getting harder and harder, isn't it?
All the time. I'm lucky my job is learn and then teach.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a lucky position where I can spend, a week just reading articles,
'Cause that's your
doing
job,
this
yeah?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My job is to document and teach.
In security, it's the same story. Like every single day, there is something new happening.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going for a vacation, I'm like, okay, I will be reading news, but only for the like a little moment. Yes, then I really feel that I'm not informed, and I have to catch up very quickly to
Yeah.
find out what was happening within the past 2 weeks.
It's amazing how fast. Like I have so many little folders on my mail for various different distribution lists I'm on, and I've thousands of emails to catch up on from the last 6 months.
Oh.
My RSS feeds. Right now, the only one I'm keeping up with is my cloud. I'm not keeping up with my Windows Server the way I need to be. I'm not keeping up with System Center and Windows
so many
10.
news in that
There's
area,
just
yeah?
so much to keep up with.
Well, you see, guys, so that's a good news.
Yeah,
This virtualization is growing, yeah?
Yeah, when you think about, there's so much information out there, it means there's more skills required. So if you're getting into the IT business, wherever you are, the opportunities are there. Because of the cloud, I mean, this is just such an amazing time because we really don't know what's coming in the future.
No, that's true.
Things are changing so fast, and it's truly a global skill as well.
There were a bunch of things that changed in the morning in Azure, actually. So
Really? I need to go look.
Yeah, here we go. So that's how fast it's changing. Like
Yeah.
it can surprise you pretty much every day. There is something new, and you're like, okay, time to learn.
Yeah, some things I know about, and then there's other things like, I should have known about that. Why didn't I know about that?
Yeah. But okay, so we've got this. But what about the professional guys, like the ones that are already doing a lot of stuff in the infrastructure? Do you have some advice, like what kind of skills should they have, what they should know in virtualization to be even better?
Yeah. So the two things I would say that they need to look at are software-defined storage and software-defined networking.
Okay.
So the enterprise guys right now, if they're doing virtualization, vSphere or Hyper-V, what they're mainly working with is SAN. And that's the most expensive way to do disk, and it's not necessarily the most reliable, because SANs do have crashes, they do have single points of failure, which is the SAN as a unit. And the software sometimes does crash and corrupt the data.
Yeah.
And so there's that, and it's just so expensive to do storage that way.
It is.
That's why there's 0 SANs in the cloud, by the way. It's all software-defined storage, and you can do that yourself. Whether you're doing vSphere or Hyper-V, there are software-defined storage solutions. So in Hyper-V, what we've got is storage bases and storage bases direct. Using commodity hardware, we can do the tiered storage thing using NVMe. So you're talking about your 500,000 million IOPS per disk,
Which is
your
great,
SSD
yeah.
storage, so your 65,000 IOPS per disk,
Yeah.
and your traditional HDD, which gives you your 10 terabytes per disk. So you can have your cold data on the nice, slow, cheap disks, and you can have your operational data on those SSDs or NVMe, and you can have your persistent cache sitting on NVMe. So you can have amazing performance at a much lower cost.
Yeah.
And networking side, RDMA for that great performance, but software-defined networking gives you the ability to scale out. So you're no longer looking at the complexities of VLANs. You keep those VLANs for some of the basic infrastructural things, but you start doing your isolation using software-defined networking, same ways you would do in AWS or Azure. And in fact, in Windows Server 2016, you're actually using Azure.
Yes.
The code has been ported down. So you're using the network controller, you're using a switch-enabled teaming, which enables things like the hardware offloads like RDMA to go into the host through converged networking. And we can do some very, very clever, flexible, fast-to-deploy stuff that doesn't give you a hairline like me every time you deploy a new VLAN.
Okay.
Doesn't make your firewall guys, stress out every time you say, listen, we need to deploy a new VLAN.
Yeah.
And the firewall rules become incredibly more complex.
Yeah.
So software-defined networking, it's isolated networks by default.
And it's quite comfortable to configure it, yeah?
Yeah, like I've never configured a VLAN in my life.
Oh.
And I can do software-defined networking so
like this,
easily.
yeah?
And what you're doing on-prem in 2016 is exactly what you would do in Azure.
Oh, that's great to know. Yeah. So let's sum up. Yeah. So what we have discussed today with Aidan are all the new solutions that are within the virtualization and also with Azure available for you pretty much immediately because Azure is out there. It's just enough to sign up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've become familiar with all the newest solutions that are also within the security. Yeah. So things like shielded VMs, virtual TPM, credential guard, and so on. So this is all thanks to virtualization and Hyper-V out there. Yeah. So the newest one.
Yeah, the newest one, 2016.
Exactly. And thank you so much for the great interview.
Thanks for the invitation. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys liked it, we really hope that you're going to have some questions so that you're going to post them in the comment section below our interview. We're looking forward to them, and we hope you like it and that you will also like our other content related series that we got out there for you. And basically, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.